All right. All right. All right. All right. What's going on, beautiful people? Good evening to you all. I'm really gonna kind of just jump right into this reading with Jam this time. Uh, I guess a little quick backstory. So this book is entitled. Let me pull it up here on YouTube. Uh, you'll be able to see the title. Let's see if I can. Let's make it bigger. There you go. All right. So, um, for those who are on Instagram, uh, since I'm streaming on YouTube, I kind of have to guard the certain things that I say. In this book might actually be kind of triggering. So the title is "I Don't SA Black Females." Black Christian brothers affirm mandate to sexually protect our cultural sisters. Um, I found out about this book some years ago. I bought it in 2022, actually. It's a Kindle book, and I thought this was a really good book. It was a challenging book, but it was a really good book. And I find because of the recent allegations and things that's been happening within our community, especially related around P. Diddy and Cassie and all that other stuff, I thought this was kind of important to read. It's a short book, but I found like it was really, really important to read. And I know the next book that I want to read is All About Love by Bell Hooks. But this particular book was very challenging, and I think it's important for us as Black men um, moving forward and trying to be better for our community. If we're trying to be beneficial men, it includes us actually respecting and protecting our sisters. And so I'm going to read through this book, even though it is kind of written for the perspective of those in the church or for Christian men. Uh, I think it can be used for any Black man, I believe. And so I'm gonna read through this book. Today, I'm not gonna read that long. Probably try to fit in the 30 minutes or whatever. But again, it's a really, really short read. But it I think it's a heavy book, and I think it is really important, and it's something that needs to be available out there. So this book, written by Reverend Dr. Walter Arthur McCray, I think is really, really important, and very, very vital for where we are right now, especially in response to all of the recent things that have been happening in our community and in our society, particularly again related to the allegations and things with P Diddy and between P Diddy and Cassie. And the sad reality is, I think more and more of this stuff is going to come out, and we need to make better decisions. Make better decisions, not for the fact of like protecting our reputation or anything, but honestly respecting and honoring and showing love to our sisters in our community, towards all women, but more specifically towards Black women. And I know for some people, the term female can be triggering, but I think he's very specific in why he chooses that. And as I read, I think that'll be explained. But I'm going to jump into this book. I'm put 30 minutes on the clock. I'm going to try to finish this quickly because my wife is going live in about 30 minutes. So I want to read and finish this up, and so that I can jump in for her live. So if you're interested, make sure to go check out her page at Alicia Renice. All right, let me get this off the screen and let's read. I might just only read the introduction right now because I'm kind of short on time, but let's get into it. And so again, the title of the book is "I Don't Sexually Abuse Black Females. Black Christian brothers affirm mandate to sexually protect our cultural sisters." And so moving forward, I will be editing what I'm saying so that I don't like flag any of the stuff on YouTube or different social media platforms. All right. For my cultural sisters. So this is like an introduction. This is from Dr. Reverend Walter McCray. For my cultural sisters, violated, injured, blemished by the sexual harm of callous males, for your sexual and spiritual security coming in its full realization. For your brothers of African descent to awaken with deep sexual sensitivity, feeling the anguish of your feminine humanity, protecting, aiding your redemptive healing. For your sexual vindication, rightful, social, and restful, bringing wholesome restoration, manifesting high and holy aspirations of your female Black personhood, body, mind, spirit, and soul, of your precious eternal being, for your holistic sexual peace. Reverend Dr. Walter Arthur McCray, May 10th, 2018. As I flip to the first chapter, just want to shout out Truth's Table as a podcast. Originally, I think it was 3 women, but Truth's Table, they interviewed Reverend Dr. McCray about this book, and that's how I found out about it. So I was listening to a podcast by 3 Black women, and they brought this up, and I was just stunned, and I knew I had to get this book. So we're starting with part 1, Cultural Problem and Protection. Chapter 1, Essay on Black Sisters and a Mandate for Brothers to Protect. Moral outrage over male sexual SA of females has risen nationally and internationally. Notable stories of high-profile American male SAers of females are a serious wake-up call for white males and perhaps especially for Black males. SA happens to Black females at a higher rate than to their white counterparts. Outcry of SA or sexually abused. This is going to be tricky. Outcry of abused American females. Revelations of sexual scandals involving notable and powerful male figures began capturing the news cycle in 2017 and continues in 2018. The well-known news-breaking story of the conviction of America's Dad on 3 counts of aggravated indecent sexual assault is heart-rending. Hey, what's going on? Heart-rending. And, they mean by America's Dad, talking about Bill Cosby. The outcome of his gut-wrenching trial portends ominous consequences for any alleged sexual offenders. I'm just going to have to bite the bullet. This might get taken down, but let's do it. Sexual offenders, despite their power and influence, whose accusatory victims eventually get their day in court. Increasing news reports and trials have turned the moral, ethical, legally uncivil, and criminal spotlight on sexual misconduct, harassment, and assault, and on credible allegations of the same. Males who dominate and sexually exploit females are the key offenders, and some have acknowledged their sexual infractions. Hey, the other MJ. Other men are the subjects of investigations into incidences of inappropriate sexual behavior and of illegal sexual activity, and some are in obstinate denial. SA perpetrators in the media, entertainment industry, and government are at the center of these explosive exposés. According to numerous credible witnesses, some contend that the highest office holder in the nation is not without moral, if not legal criminal, culpability as a male SAer. When coupled with his own self-confession and vulgarized words describing his extremely intentional and assaulting behavior toward females, the accusations are quite plausible and condemning. Now we're talking about Trump. S-aid African-American sisters. Aside from the high-profile cases, research and reports well established that the SA perpetrated on females is widespread in American society, and it deeply affects innocent Black victims. Numerous women say that they have been assaulted. In daily occurrences of American life, male abuse of females abounds in everything from sexually degrading and demeaning communication to sexual misconduct, sexual bullying and harassment, to girl child molestation, to criminal assault, to sex trafficking, to gang rape, and more. Sorry, this might be triggering for some people, so if it's too heavy, I understand. But I figured I want this to be out there because I really believe it's important for us as men to hear this and to take this seriously. 1 in 6 women are victims of an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. Annually, 1.3 million women may be victims of rape or attempted rape. More than 80% of all juvenile sexual victims are female. The overwhelming majority, 90%, of adult rape victims are female. Nearly 63% of women have experienced some form of sexual violence. Blacks have a greater risk of rape or as assault than any other racial ethnic group except Native Americans, and the risk of experiencing assault is even greater for low-income and urban Blacks. Abused but nevertheless courageous women are justifiably crying out for vindication. They are sending a wake up call to males of all classes across America by widely casting their dragnet for sexual justice. They desire to ensnare in public the secretive womanizers who lurk for sexual prey in all sectors of American life, including those male victimizers in diverse social, racial, and religious groups. Our African American sisters, oh, hold on. Our African American sisters especially are seeking shelter from male sexual violation. Black and Christian men must hear and take note. So again, whether you're a Christian or not, I think this is important for us as men, particularly Black men. A divine voice and warning. Spiritually attuned hearers appear to sense that a divine voice is raising the nation's collective consciousness about abused females. Apparently, the Most High God of all humanity is sending a special moral message throughout the nation. Males must cease their sexual abuse of females, and American society must hold fully accountable all offenders of females. Among others to whom he may be speaking, perhaps God is using the prevailing sexual issue to prick the consciousness of Black males, especially by raising the consciousness of African American men who follow Christ. Aside from God's dealings with others, my deeper convictions testify that Black Christian men, the brothers, should begin to interpret the national reports and accusations of abuse as a divine warning to Black male believers and our churches. The sexual mandate for Black Christian brothers. Thus, might it be that in this season, the Lord is specifically giving us Black brothers the moral challenge to take care of our own sexual housekeeping? Isn't it quite plausible that God is provoking us to do a greater part in helping to clean up the sexual business in our own community in Christian relationships relative to females of African descent, our sisters? I believe so and promote this position. I advocate that God has given Black brothers a sexual mandate. Again, I think this can go for any Black men. As intuitively discerned, this sexual mandate is biblically based, spiritual, moral, and cultural. It is a mandate to advance Black male sexual responsibility, integrity, and accountability regarding the abuse done to Black females. By his Spirit, the God of all humanity is divinely directing Black male believers to focus on attending to the sexual protection of the sisters in our own cultural home. These are our women, our younger females, and our girls of African American identity. As Black men who are followers of Christ, God is moving African American Christian men to stand especially against the injustices of abuse experienced by Black females at the hands of Black males. Moreover, the Lord is compelling us as brothers to earnestly advocate for the effective prevention of Black male abuse in our own circles of Christian faith. This is essentially our divine sexual mandate. This is the immediate charge that God has given to Black Christian men in this hour of moral decision. God is challenging and mandating Christ-centered Black men to commit ourselves to protecting our sisters from Black male sexual violation in all its forms. He is pressing us as brothers to spread a covering that safeguards Black females from sexual abuse that is either spiritually immoral, uncivil, unethical, or illegal. Christian Black men must work to protect our sisters from the full range of abuse in all its degenerative and destructive manifestations. In good measure, Black men who make personal and sexually responsible decisions have power to protect a vast number of Black females from sexual abuse and victimization. Many of these sisters are active in our churches and in our Christian organizations and connections. Black Christian men, therefore, have the power and moral influence to make a greater impact on remediating the social issue of sexually abused Black females. We are in a place of spiritual, cultural, and sexual responsibility and of opportunity. A brother's personal affirmation. As Black Christian men, we must rise to take our rightful ownership of this great sexual responsibility toward our sisters. As Black brothers, we must seriously respond to the movement of God and the sexual affairs of our community. Therefore, I appeal to each African American Christian man to make the spiritual decision never to become or to cease being a abuser of our sisters. I'll read that one more time. Therefore, I appeal to each African American Christian man to make the spiritual decision never to become or to cease being a abuser of our sisters. Further, I encourage Black Christian brothers to courageously articulate our commitment to obey God's sexual mandate and to advocate that we also take proactive steps to persuade all Black males under our influence to do the same in terms that are passionate and unequivocal. Here I state the personalized spiritual affirmation. I don't abuse Black females. The words of this affirmative commitment are intensely personal and courageous. The statement is more than a reflection on past conduct. I haven't abused Black females. Neither are these words a promise for future behavior. I won't abuse Black females. Instead, the words are an affirmation of the present, the right here and now. I don't abuse Black females. Apply the affirmation. Throughout life and in every circumstance, as a brother, I responsibly choose to personally prevent myself from committing any abusive acts while in the immediate presence or whenever I contact a woman, young or female, or girl child. Any decision I make to sexually protect our sisters is current and lasting. Any brother who makes this sexual affirmation and resolves to stay true to his commitment will empower and prevent himself from committing abuse on our cultural females, our sisters of African descent. By applying biblical values and principles as Black Christian men, we can prevent ourselves from perpetrating immoral and illicit sexual behavior upon Black females. I'm going to stop there. I'm not even going to do the full 30 minutes. First thing, with him addressing or saying females, I think the idea is to capture the whole gamut of the age range. So children, young girls, so girls to women. So I think that's why he's saying female. So it's capturing the whole breadth of the feminine sex of humanity. But again, I understand how that can be triggering. Like I said at the beginning of this, I think it is very, very important for us, just as men and within our community. We have to, as silly as it seems, it's important that we establish and even reestablish particular standards within our community. And I think that's stuff that has been lost within our community, particularly as men. And I find it really, really interesting that a lot of the recent allegations, especially with like P. Diddy or whatever, is tied to the hip hop culture, and it sucks because so much of hip hop comes from Black people, but it has such a huge influence across the world. And there's so many diabolical things tied to that genre of music and also tied to that culture, even though that's not really, the basis of it. For those who aren't super familiar with like the actual elements of hip hop, there are 5 elements. So there's breakdancing, emceeing, graffiti, DJing, and the knowledge of self, right? And the knowledge of self is really trying to help you better love yourself and realize that you're important, you're valuable. You can go deeper into some other stuff, but those are those 5 elements. And the heart behind hip hop, at least my understanding of it, I'm not that much of like a deep scholar into it, but the heart behind hip hop at that time when it was being created in the late 70s, early 80s was to have a positive influence in the Black community, for any inner city youth, trying to actually get them away from gang culture, get them away from violence, get them away from crazy stuff. But at some point, things went south. We started getting a lot of the highly misogynistic, and crazy stuff that has been impacting and influencing our community for decades now. 50 years, which again, this is the 50th year of celebrating hip hop. And now one of the biggest influencers, one of the biggest impacts and influences of the hip hop community is being called out for some very, very devious behavior. I feel like that's on purpose. And that is kind of like what the author was saying here. It is something that we need to take note of, especially as Black men. And again, not to be like, oh man, I got to do more dirt in the dark, or I guess I should stop because people are getting called out. It's like, no, there's been a lot of harm and damage done in our community and in our society, particularly towards our sisters, because we haven't had and haven't established and enforced a good standard when it comes to sexual behavior at all. Because I mean, even if you look at, if we want to take a step away from hip hop culture, you look at red pill stuff and manosphere and all that crap. A lot of the advice is to go out and smash as many women as you can. Go out and be as loose with your and free with your sexual appetite as possible. Pretty much be a man whore, and have serve no consequences. That is not good. That is not good. And it's very destructive to ourselves. Good evening. Good evening to you, tea time beauty. It is destructive to ourselves. It is destructive to our community, and it's destructive to our future, like the kids that we're raising and stuff like that. And so that's why I think this book, I can tell is not a very popular book, but I think this book is very important for us to read and for I believe Black men to be aware of. So it's one of the reasons I want to read this and get through it. Um, I understand that it is challenging and can be like dicey. And I've read it before and I thought it was pretty good, but I am rereading it again. And I'm hopeful that it will be beneficial, even if it just starts conversation and starts questions. But I know I sort of have to be delicate in reading it. Yeah. And so again, even though it's directed towards Christian men or men in the church, which I, this is the last thing that I have to get off, but I find this so I want to say poignant, but I don't know if that's the right word. But I feel like this is it may be ironic because you would think for men who claim to be Christians, who claim to be holy, who claim to be following God, that this should be a given, right? But sadly, a lot of the deviant behavior comes from Black men who claim to be Christian. And that, to me, that's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking. The people who are supposed to be representing Jesus, who are supposed to be representing holiness, who are supposed to be representing righteousness and be like serving of people and loving of people, have done some of the greatest damage within our community. Like there's so many stories of pastors and ministers, deacons, whatever names you want to give it, who have done evil and wicked things to the women in our community. And a lot of times without revocation, without consequence, without problems. And I would think that if somebody claims to be a Christian, and I'd have to say this to myself too, because I've been I've been a Christian F boy, and it's not good, and I regret it, and I regret the sins that I've committed against God and committed against sisters. And I think that's why it's even more vital and important for me. It's like, no, we got to stop this. This is ridiculous. This is really, really bad. This is hurtful and it's bad to not only faith or whatever, but to our whole community as Black people. And so even though this book is targeted towards Christian Black men, it can go for any Black man. If you're Muslim, if you're atheist, whatever, I think there's a standard in here that we need to uphold. And I think that's really, really important. I think as men, Black men in our community, we need to reestablish standards and things to strive for, regardless of faith, regardless of belief. It's just for the benefit of the community around us. But okay, I think I've ranted enough. Thank you all for joining me. We are starting this book, and it's going to be a lot of editing in regards to how I'm speaking, because YouTube, you can't say a lot of stuff, and I'm sure that's the same case on Instagram. But yeah, we're going to be reading I Don't Abuse Black Females, Black Christian Brothers, a Firm Mandate to Sexually Protect Our Cultural Sisters by Reverend Dr. Walter Arthur McCray. It's a short read, so it shouldn't take me that long to get through it, but I know it's kind of heavy. But thank you all for joining me. I will show up sometime tomorrow. I'm working on my schedule this week. But as I wrap up, I hope you all had a safe and wonderful holiday weekend, and I will see you all tomorrow to continue the read. Thank you again for joining me. Talk to you guys later. See you.